Many travelers call California a separate state. It's all about its diversity. There are mountain ranges and beautiful Pacific coast, chic metropolises with business centers and cozy villages with farms, wild protected areas and huge zoos, expensive neighborhoods and dangerous criminal areas. Inside this contrasting state, another state has suddenly emerged: Silicon Valley. It would seem that you can only go here if you have a brilliant idea for a startup in your head or have a huge baggage of IT knowledge under your belt, but this is not the case. But before we start, subscribe to our channel, give us a like and post the video on social networks. Next, we will tell you how Mary Johnson, who is traveling in the USA, told us what to do as a tourist in an IT paradise and why it's hard to live there. Around San Francisco and the bay of the same name, there is a scattering of small towns. Altogether, they are called San Francisco Bay Area. Only a few of them are considered Silicon Valley. There are 3 international airports near the valley: San Francisco, San Jose and Oakland. These are 3 major cities, each of which offers an overnight stay before traveling to the startup paradise. The only difference is that San Francisco is north of the valley, San Jose is south, and Oakland is on the other side of the bay, across the bridge. There are few direct flights from other countries to these airports right now. However, it is possible to fly with a connection in New York or Los Angeles. The most convenient option: transit through the City of Angels, from it to San Francisco to fly no more than an hour, or you can rent a car and at the same time drive along the famous road along the Pacific coast. Most travelers recommend staying in San Francisco for at least a few days before going to the valley for the history, architecture and sea lions. From the airport to downtown and even to the old college town of Berkeley, you can take a subway called Bay Area Rapid Transit. The city itself is not as lively and loud as, for example, New York, but very colorful and bright. It is famous for its charming houses, similar to those in which the heroines of the TV series, Bewitched, lived. Central districts are good with picturesque streets and colorful buildings in Victorian style. There are more than 14,000 of them here, but it's hard to walk here without physical preparation. The roads are constantly getting sharp slopes. San Francisco stands on 50 hills. How about it, New York? Unfortunately, there is no trace of the disco style, which was born in local clubs in the 1970s. In recent years, the city has become dirty and unsafe. There are many homeless people on the streets, and they are not always harmless. The homeless live at the expense of various charitable organizations that support them with money and food. There is even a notion of chronic homelessness in relation to the San Francisco society. Here you can see drug addicts who are not shy about using right on the sidewalk downtown. For tourists, it's something of an attraction, but locals are outraged by what's happening. It is impossible to leave things in the car. Homeless people can break the glass of a parked car even for the sake of a bottle of water, if they are suddenly thirsty. Some car owners are already desperate and leave a note on the windshield: "Don't break the window. The car is open. If you need something, just take it." The USA is a country of contrasts, and San Francisco only confirms this fact. For example, the beautiful Golden Gate Bridge, which is painted on all the photos of the city, is no less famous as the Bridge of Suicides. It occupies one of the leading places in the list of locations popular among those wishing to settle the score with life. The bridge even has special phones on which the desperate can call the support center. Near them are signs that read "There is hope." Despite this sad fact, the Golden Gate Bridge is still worth seeing, and from both sides. Usually, tourists limit themselves to a walk along the Golden Gate Promenade, but the best viewing platforms are located on the hills on the side of Kirby Bay, and for a full range of emotions you can walk across the bridge on foot. San Francisco is surrounded by water on almost all sides, so the local piers deserve special attention. They run along Embarcadero Street along the curve of the northeastern edge of the city. The sites used to be a vibrant gateway to the world, but when the levee was more than 100 years old, about 20 piers collapsed right into the bay. Later, the Port Authority decided to rebuild the shoreline to preserve the history and culture of the location. Now the piers are home to fairs, sightseeing tours, restaurants and street food stalls, and on weekends tourists and locals with their families stroll here. The numbering of the piers starts at the ferry building at the end of Market Street, with odd-numbered piers on the left and even-numbered piers on the right. The most famous is Pier 39, where you can see a sea lion rookery, but be patient. The animals have a very distinctive and strong odor. Take a short cruise around the bay, and stop for a fish lunch at the Fog Harbor Fish House. You should definitely try the fish chowder soup with seafood here. It is inexpensive, but it is not prepared so delicious anywhere else. In addition, The city is famous for its abundance of fog. The locals even nicknamed it Carl the Fog in honor of the X account of the same name, which published humorous posts about the weather in the region. Due to the climatic peculiarities here, you can witness the amazing sight of the setting sun rising above the low fog. It can be seen especially well from the Bay Bridge, from which it's convenient to travel through the valley. In contrast to the restless San Francisco, the cities of Silicon Valley will seem like a paradisiacal family oasis. It is a very safe place, clean and peaceful. The standard of living here is quite high, so there is little crime. There are a couple of unfavorable areas, for example, East Menlo Park, but even there they still keep order. The most lucky people in the valley are IT specialists, but in addition to them there are waiters, bartenders, hairdressers, cleaners, managers and a million other representatives of various professions. It is unclear how these people survive, because the prices here are off the charts for everything. Except avocados. So, a good one-bedroom apartment in Redwood City and its suburbs will cost $4,000 a month. This is only rent, without housing and utilities. Rent of detached houses starts at $4,000 and goes into infinity. You can find cheaper in other Bay Area towns, but there and the climate will be worse. For example, in the city of Pacifica, eternal fog and cold, so prices there are lower, although the area is very beautiful. The most expensive rent is in Palo Alto, where Stanford University and the Skype office are located. At the same time, the most expensive index in all the states is considered the local town of Atherton. From 2017 to 2020, it led the median value of a house for sale, $7 million. By the way, most buildings in the valley are classic one-story America and go to bed very early here. So, the Bay Area is definitely not suitable for those who like ancient architecture and party until 5 in the morning. Even the few bars that host raucous parties on Fridays are quiet until midnight. That said, for fans of Asian cuisine, it's a true paradise. There are a lot of Asian representatives in the valley, so in a local restaurant there's a chance to get the most authentic Chinese, Thai or Japanese dish. In addition, California has a very large Latino population. Their colorful culture has seeped everywhere. Food, music, events. At every turn you can meet taqueria, a shop or cafe with Mexican taco, quesadilla, burrito. Such a snack is good for travelers. You can feel the national color, and eat hearty food, and pay a reasonable price. Latin Americans here behave quite calmly, often move here with whole families, walk with numerous children and do not really justify stereotypes about rowdy Southerners. But in other restaurants and cafes you will have to pay a fortune. The average check for 2 coffees with dessert $25, for dinner $100 for 2 people without alcohol. In addition, it is customary to leave tips for everything here, preferably 20%. In many establishments they are already included in the bill. In addition, it is important to take into account taxes. In all of America, on top of the cost you will pay state tax, sales tax and some other tax. In the end, it may turn out that you wanted to buy a sandwich for $13 and paid $22. The most convenient way to get around the Bay Area is by car, but it is not cheap. You can rent a car from $1,100 a month, for a week up to $350. Public transportation is poorly developed here. Electric trains do not stop everywhere. There are, of course, buses, but you have to work hard to plan a bus route. But the cost of the trip only $2.50 in cash. In general, the emergence of Silicon Valley was due to one tragedy. In the late 19th century, the only son of a major railroad magnate, former Governor Leland Stanford, died of typhoid fever at the age of 15. In memory of the boy, his parents decided to build a university on the site of the former farm, which very soon became the educational center of California. By the way, the motto of the university, "The Wind of Freedom Blows," it was originally conceived as an innovative institution. Both men and women were accepted here, and the curriculum was devoid of the religious component accepted at the time. From here came the startup spirit for which the valley is now famous. In the 1940s, engineering professor Frederick Terman began encouraging Stanford graduates to invent their own technology products and commercialize their ideas. The large number of high-tech and semiconductor firms even then helped Stanford become a nursery of innovation that was eventually named Silicon Valley after the key ingredient of transistors. As such, Terman is often referred to as the father of Silicon Valley. Some areas of the university are completely free to look into, such as the campus library and museum. Stanford's grounds are like a park, and the buildings are in Spanish colonial style, so it's a pleasure to walk there. The main attraction of the Bay Area is its flora and sometimes fauna. Therefore, after living a couple of days in San Francisco and the towns of the valley, it is worth a trip to the surrounding area. If you drive from north to south through the entire Bay Area, you can feel the temperature fluctuations from +14 to +33 degrees. And that's within a half hour. While San Francisco is cloudy and humid, the neighboring city will be searing hot. At the same time, Northern California is not like the Hollywood series about Malibu lifeguards. There are almost no palm trees and warm beaches, and swim very rarely and only the bravest. Climatic zones here change at an eerie speed, which means that you can see the desert with scorched grass, and wet from rain greenery on the hills, and warm sunny suburbs. For example, in the town of Aptos, located near the famous surfer Santa Cruz, there is a real bamboo park, bamboo nursery, and in Monterey, in addition to the beautiful Rocky Bay, you can admire marine life in a huge aquarium Monterey Bay. It was in this city, by the way, that the atmospheric backdrop for the TV series Big Little Lies was filmed. But with the local nature should be careful. Some tourists complain that they were bitten by wild squirrels, and they are here on the streets as pigeons in any square in Europe. Such an event not only threatens health, but also costs a lot of money. A rabies shot in the hospital costs several $1,000s, if the patient does not have local insurance. Besides nature, California is famous for its wine. Even non-drinking tourists like to visit local wineries and vineyards. It's all about the views. One of the most famous locations is Napa Valley, with over 400 wineries scattered on its soils. The valley is considered one of the best wine regions in the world, known for its prized Cabernet Sauvignon variety. As the locals say, visiting Napa is like having a glass of pure sunshine. All Californians are real fans of hiking. They like to walk in hilly areas with infants in slings, with dogs, which officially outnumber children, with elderly parents and teenagers. And they walk not chaotically, but along a specially laid-out route trail running. They have to wear comfortable clothes, armed with a light snack and water. At first glance, it seems to be an easy walk, but in fact it turns out to be quite tiring. By the way, it is during hiking that you notice that Northern Californians are very hardened. While Northerners are wrapped up in a fall jacket, they walk in t-shirts, and their children in short shorts. The fact is that there is no heating as such, and from a young age locals get used to the bracing cold wind off the bay, drafts and low house temperatures. Most Northern Californians are friendly, helpful and quiet people. No one will look askew at a tourist confused about English cases, because many have recently arrived in the United States. This is not surprising. Young professionals around the world are now dreaming of taking a place in the sun among the technological diversity of Silicon Valley. You can easily hear a cab driver say that he works in a cab for fun, but in reality, he is a programmer in some startup. There is a fabulous amount of money in the valley, but it is not customary to boast of wealth. You can stand in traffic next to the head of a multi-million-dollar startup and not realize it by his appearance or his car. And speaking of cars, the locals just love electric cars, Teslas at every turn here, and charging stations for them too. Despite all the apparent friendliness and politeness, locals are not eager to reveal their souls. Many people find it easier to tell their thoughts and problems to a psychologist than to have a heart-to-heart chat with friends. Buddies are needed for joint common hobbies: hiking, cooking courses, traveling. Guys, if you liked our video, but you haven't subscribed to us yet, subscribe right now and post the video in social networks. There will be a lot of interesting things in the next episodes. See you soon. Bye.